We are in my backyard standing in the first greenhouse that I ever built. It's 120 square feet and it's probably about the average size of a greenhouse if you're first starting out. Let me start by saying having a greenhouse is not a cheap hobby to have. Growing tropical and subtropical plants in a cold climate, here it can get to negative 20 Fahrenheit, and for some of you guys where you live, it might get even colder than that. So if you live in a cold climate, it is not going to be a cheap hobby, and keeping those tropical and subtropical plants alive is going to be a cost that you're going to have to be willing to pay. But if you love what you're doing, if you love growing plants, you have a collection that's getting too large for the house, and a greenhouse is where you're at, and you're willing to pay for it, guys, it's going to be so rewarding, so fun, and I'm really excited for you. Like I said, this greenhouse is 120 square feet. It's pretty small, and growing a lot of tropical and subtropicals, I needed to keep the temperature roughly 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit all winter long in order to keep my plants happy, healthy, growing, flowering, fruiting, the whole nine. So what did I do? I started researching and I just couldn't find good information. There were people saying, put big totes of water in the greenhouse. The sunlight will heat the water up and it'll radiate heat out all night. That did not keep the temperatures in this greenhouse anywhere near where it needed to be. The next thing that I did is I went to my local store, bought a 1500 watt heater, plugged it in. That did not work. That was a miserable fail. The thing was running all night long, just sucking energy. I went and bought a second 1500 watt heater. So now I've got two of them running out here. They were both constantly running. The temperature was dropping as the outside temperatures dropped, and it was just sucking energy. It was not an efficient or cost-effective method to heat this greenhouse. We came to the option of a wood-burning stove. Now, this can be a viable option. However, I will tell you, there's going to be a lot of work involved because you're going to have to get up after certain periods of time, depending on how fast that wood is burning, to replace the wood and keep that heat burning. I don't recommend that method. You might be gung-ho and be able to do it at first, but over time you're probably going to wear yourself out. So that really leaves us with the final options, which are natural gas or propane. And when I say the final options, I'm talking about, for the typical person, natural gas or propane is going to be the easiest thing you could do. If you can run natural gas out to your greenhouse, that is the best way to do it, hands down, because then you don't have to think about refilling a tank, wondering if you're running out of your heating fuel. It's just going to be a bill that you get in the mail every month, just like heating your house. However, if you live a little further away from things or you don't have the option of getting natural gas, propane is going to be the way to go. And I did this and set up a 30,000 BTU Mr. Heater, and it's worked wonders. I could keep it 90 degrees in here year round if I wanted to, pay for that amount of propane. Like I said, with tropicals, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit is where you want to be. And with the 30,000 BTU Mr. Heater, I can easily keep it at that temperature, even on the coldest nights. With all that being said, let me show you my setup and let me give you some tips to more cost effectively heat your greenhouse. So here's my setup, guys. It's a Mr. Heater 30,000 BTU propane heater. They make these in natural gas as well. If your greenhouse is smaller than this, they make a 10,000 BTU, a 20,000 BTU, I think, and maybe other brands make different various BTU heaters. But this is what I'm using. I've had it for many years now. Works perfectly with minimal maintenance. Obviously every year I clean it before I turn it on for the winter, but outside of that I haven't really had any problems. There's a little ignition button here that takes, I think it's a AA battery, I can't remember, haven't changed it in a little while, but super easy. You just twist this, it comes right off. The heater runs from level 1 to level 5. It has a pilot light, so when it reaches a certain temperature it'll go to a pilot and reignite whenever it's time to heat the greenhouse again, which is super nice, which means you just hook the propane up and set it to the temperature you want and walk away. And you can know your plants are being taken care of. Now, when I first started, I was heating it with these little things just from my local store. That's the most expensive way to buy propane. You could still use these containers after you buy them. You need to make sure that they're within a certain date. Here on the side, it's written when it was last safety checked. And if it's out of date, they're not going to fill it up. I go to my local Tractor Supply. Right now, I think it's $3.39 a gallon for propane. Go to a local refill station. You can still use these if they're in date. If not, I would actually recommend buying these bigger tanks. I bought 2 of these 40-pound tanks. I can go to Tractor Supply, get them both filled up all the way for roughly $50 or $60, depending on the price of propane. And these 2 things will heat my greenhouse for about 2 weeks. And that's with temperatures being decently cold. Now, if we get really cold, if we get into those negatives, man, it sucks the propane so fast. And you can expect those weeks to be pretty expensive. But outside of that, I have no qualms about these heaters. It's definitely the best way that I've found to heat a greenhouse. Maybe somebody else has answers for you that I don't. But it would be very difficult for someone to convince me to change from this method because it's just so reliable. Propane burns very hot, so the heat output is insane. I could keep this thing 90 degrees, like I said, if I wanted to. It's not necessary for tropicals, subtropicals, 65, 70 degrees, perfectly fine. I keep this set at about a 2.5 level, which keeps my greenhouse within that 65 to 75 degree range, depending on the outside temperatures. So totally recommend doing this if you're considering heating a small backyard greenhouse. Now, out at the farm where we have our professional setup, we have a much larger heater. We ended up getting a 500-gallon tank, which is actually very easy. You get propane at about half the cost that you would even at a refill station like Tractor Supply. The last time I filled up, I got it for $1.99 a gallon for the 500-gallon tank, which they can only fill to about 80%. I paid less than $1,000 for it. I think I paid less than $800. I can't remember, but somewhere in that range. So it's actually pretty cost effective if you build a bigger greenhouse and you can get a big tank to run your heater. It's a lot cheaper to do it that way. And make sure you make your greenhouse as airtight as possible. Don't have cracks everywhere where the heat's escaping. That's going to save you a lot of money. So it's actually a big deal to go around your greenhouse, caulking any cracks where the polycarbonate is or where the glass is. Definitely close up any gaps that you can, and that's going to save you a lot of money. Very simple, very easy to do. Anybody could do it. And if you have a small greenhouse, it really shouldn't cost very much money, guys. And it's so much fun. It's just, it could be negative 20 degrees outside and you come in the greenhouse, it's 65, 70 degrees and nice and warm. You get the green foliage, the fruit. It's just a real pick-me-up in the depressing months of winter. So if you haven't built a greenhouse yet and you're on the fence, it's well worth the expense in my opinion. And this is by far the best way I found to do it. Don't waste your time doing the totes and all that stuff. If you live on the edge of even needing a greenhouse, you could do it that way. There'd probably be people in the comments that are saying things like, I live in this zone and I run the heater, a 1500 watt heater and it keeps it fine. I'd have a hard time believing that. I found that there's a lot of people in the comments that really say some unbelievable things. Maybe they're telling the truth. I don't know. Maybe their greenhouse is super efficient. Maybe they've got the 5-walled polycarbonate on there. But for the most part, this is where you're going to want to be at, in my opinion. Some of you guys may have differing opinions, but thanks for watching the video, guys. Leave a like if you like the content, share with any of your friends who might find this video helpful, subscribe to the channel, check out the American Fig Company where we sell all kinds of really cool fruiting plants, and we are about to launch rooted plants. We're coming out of cutting season. We're going to launch our rooted plants probably on Monday. So check that out if you haven't seen our site. It's really cool. Really cool. A lot of great information and a lot of really cool plants. So thanks for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.